With YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram Reels, it has never been more popular for riders to record themselves. Here's the problem though, riding a motorcycle already has a ton of things the rider needs to focus on, you know, like people not seeing you, traffic, control of the motorcycle, keeping it balanced. The list goes on and on. This makes 360 cameras perfect for riders because they capture everything all the time, but in the past they've always seemed a little hard to use. Screens are too small to really see what you're doing, the quality isn't as good as something like a GoPro, and it's hard to see the settings you've changed. Well, until now. Insta360 just released their newest generation of the X camera, the Insta360 X3, and I think they might have just solved all of my issues with 360 cameras. Let's get into the review. Before we get started, Insta360 did send us their X3, but they did not sponsor this video or tell us what to say. They don't even see this video until it goes live. As always here, all opinions are 100% my own. Alright, let's check out this camera. So the X3 boasts a few features that really got me excited. First off is this new sensor. This little guy has a 1/2-inch sensor crammed into it, and generally bigger image sensors mean better quality, so we should see an upgrade in the image quality. Next, we have single lens mode, which essentially just uses one of the two camera lenses, making this 360 camera able to be turned into a regular action camera. There's also a new button right here under the screen to go straight into that mode, as well as some cool features that makes me super excited, but we'll touch on those later when I show you guys how to use the cool footage you'll be getting out of the X3. Speaking of the footage, you need to preview it somehow, and to do that, check out the size of the screen on the front. This has got me the most excited, and we'll dive into the menus here later in the video. Finally, something that I've been dying to have in our 360 cameras is loop recording mode. Don't worry, I'll explain what that is and why you should be really excited about it. Towards the end of the video, I'll also touch on mounting options, so stick around if you are curious about how to sort those things out. But yeah, these are the things I'm most excited about the camera, but before we dive into them, let's see what we can capture with the X3 on a ride. So, as you guys can see, the quality coming out of the new X3 is pretty great. I guess that's what we should expect for a camera that costs 450 bucks. When it comes to resolution, the X3 is recording its 360 footage at 5.7K, which allows you to export 4K reframed videos, which is perfect for us because we publish all of our videos at 4K. It's honestly the best looking footage I have seen come out of a 360 camera yet. Up until now, 360 footage was always really cool and unique, but the quality just wasn't all the way there for me to make it something I want to use often. I didn't really mind doing it for some weird crazy angle here and there, but it was never anything I felt I could use often. We did some testing to use the X3 as a B camera, looking back at me using my GoPro Hero 10, that setup on my helmet that I typically always use. Check out how good the X3 footage looks when you use it as a cut back and forth camera to my regular helmet camera. Alright, so let's talk about single lens mode. This does exactly as the name implies. It basically turns off one of the lenses and only shoots out of the other one. You can press this button here in the front to switch into single lens mode, and if you press it again, it jumps to the other camera angle depending on which one you're using at that moment. There are two flavors of this. You've got 4K, which you can use their flow state stabilization, which as you can see does a great job when I'm hand holding it, or you can drop the resolution into 2.7K and have the ability to do horizon leveling. This is how people get those really cool MotoGP style shots of the bike where it's leaning like crazy but the horizon stays perfectly lined up. These modes would be perfect if you need to use the camera more like a GoPro. For the team and I, we will definitely be using this because a lot of the time we just mount the 360 camera in the front of the bike, especially when we go to press launches and we just want to shoot back at the rider. This will be the mode I'll be using the next time I have the camera shooting back at me because I already know what I want the camera to capture. I don't need to be looking all around the 360 footage. All right, this loop recording. I told you guys this is one of my favorite things, and the reason for that is the amount of hours it will save my team and I from sifting through 360 videos. As of right now, the way we've been using 360 cameras is if we know we're about to ride through a really scenic area, we'll turn on the 360 cameras. Typically, we won't be touching that footage for days, if not weeks afterwards, so by the time we go to edit the 360 files, we have to find all the cool angles and have totally forgotten what happens in the video. That means we have to get into 360 software and watch through every second of 360 video to see if anything cool happens. Keep in mind, this is 360 video, so you're constantly having to scroll around and look around the frame to make sure you didn't miss anything. So the way this loop recording works is that you set it in loop recording mode, you set our desired duration, and then you hit record. Now, you'll notice nothing really looks different. You have that red time here at the bottom, but let's jump ahead to when our red record bar is almost at that duration we set previously. What's actually happening is the camera is still recording, but it will only save the footage from the last 15 minutes or whatever you set that duration for. Let me show you guys the perfect example for this. Let's say I wanted to get this really cool 360 shot of me riding through downtown Atlanta. That's a 45-minute drive for me, and I don't want to get off the highway to set my camera up once I get into the city. I can go ahead and get my camera on and recording and head out. Now, when I get through the city, I get the shot I wanted, I hit the record button, and the camera now saves the last 15 minutes. And I can just get back to loop recording. This is perfect for only capturing after you know something has happened, or if you don't know when to anticipate that cool thing happening. And the best part, I've only got to go through 15 minutes of footage now to see the shot versus having to scrub through 45 minutes of footage. Another example for you guys would be that you turn this on when you leave to head to work or at school in the morning, and if anything happens on the way there, you just hit save and you've recorded whatever it is. Car pulling out in front of you, you sitting on your bike at a red light because red lights don't see motorcycles. Whatever happens, the camera will see it and you don't have to waste a ton of space on your card. This feature is going to allow me to capture so much more random crap that always seems to happen to motorcyclists. So that's a lot about the capturing of the footage, but what about using the camera? Let's go over the actual camera body itself. The construction of this camera is very rugged and feels great in the hand. The buttons have a great feel to them, and we do have 2 more buttons in the front now. We've got 2 in the front, and then we have the 2 on the side here. For the front buttons, we have a circular record button and then a lens switching button. This button cycles between 360 mode, single lens front, and single lens rear. These buttons make this camera incredibly easy to use, and keep in mind, most of the time I'm using it, I have gloves on. Next up on the side, we have the power button as well as a Q button, which is used to access your quick modes. This gives you space to save your favorite shooting modes so you can get the camera in the preferred mode much faster than cycling through the menu. I can definitely see myself setting up a few custom shooting modes based on the ones I find myself using the most often. Now, I'm not going to run through every single mode because there are a ton of them, but keep in mind some modes aren't available on both 360 mode and single lens mode. Final critique on the buttons. I think they did a great job of making this camera really usable with a larger screen and huge buttons, but I do wish the power button was either colored different or was raised up a little more. I have found myself having to try to find that button a few times when I had the camera mounted in a weird position, so just like a little extra bump on the top or it being a different color would really help out when I'm trying to find the power button in an awkward situation. Alright, we got to talk about this screen. When it comes to usability, this is the biggest upgrade I've seen in a 360 camera probably ever. Not only is this the largest screen I've ever seen on a 360 camera, but it's the largest screen I've ever seen on an action camera. The reason we want bigger screens is because it makes it so much easier to change settings of the mode you're in by swiping right. It gives you a ton of real estate. If you swipe down with the screen this large, you can actually preview clips when you swipe left. You guys know the majority of the time I'm using this camera, I've got all my gear on, including gloves, and I have zero problems doing anything in the menus with gloves on. It also makes me feel super confident that the camera is actually capturing what I want to because I can check. Overall, I love this screen, and the crazy thing is they had all this room already for it. Alright, so a quick touch on battery life. I've been testing the hell out of this thing, and the battery life seems incredible. I've gone on some pretty decent length rides with it just running and haven't had any use for a second battery. If I was going on maybe like a multi-day trip, I might take 2 batteries, but that's a hard might. Alright, now let's talk about mounting solutions. Now this category can get really bloated, but if you guys want to see a more in-depth video, let me know in the comments and I'll get working on it. For me, there's a couple mounting options that work really good, and a lot of it depends on the bike you're on. Now, Insta360 sent me out their bike bundle as well as their motorcycle bundle, and from my experience, the motorcycle bundle has everything you need to get the shots while riding a motorcycle, obviously. The majority of the time, you're going to be attaching this to your actual motorcycle, but there are some cool angles you can get attaching it to your helmet. For my personal use, about 90% of the shots I like mostly come from attaching the camera to the handlebar mount and just clamping it to some sort of hard point on the bike. You guys that have bikes with treadless frames have it so easy, but passenger pegs and handlebars work great. Side note, the clamp and the ball joint that comes in the motorcycle bundle works way better than just using these ram mount parts that you can get off Amazon. The Insta360 ones have some sort of metal backing that helps it not bounce around. If you're on something like a Super Sport, then I'd highly recommend the sticky mounts that come with the kit. Now, similar to the mounting section, guys, the post-filming workflow to get your footage off of this camera is something I could do an entire video on. Actually, probably multiple videos, but I'll just highlight a few of the things that I think you'll really find useful. One, the main cool thing about the 360 footage is its ability to be reframed. Because it records everything, I can just open up their Insta360 software and choose the aspect ratio I want. Basically, if you're shooting for YouTube, use 16:9, and if you're wanting to use it for something like TikTok, you can use 9:16. This is also easy as heck to do in their app, which I highly recommend using, especially if you're wanting this camera for short form content. Depending on your shooting mode, the software lets you change a ton of things like stabilization, aspect ratio, field of view, and a ton of other aspects. Once you finish, you can just export your clip made for your phone and get it posted. Final note on editing, when you guys are exporting the footage out of the software on the computer, make sure to always export as ProRes. Now, just as a warning, the files are going to be much bigger, but that gives you by far the best quality, and with a camera that looks this cool, it would be a travesty to export at a lower setting. Alright guys, so that's the Insta360 X3, my absolute favorite 360 camera. You guys are going to be seeing a ton of footage coming out with this thing here on the channel, as I plan to be using it a ton. If y'all have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. Actually, I can answer them on my TikTok, at Chaseontwowheels. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and I'll see you guys on the next one. Later. Outro crew, thanks for getting to the end of the video. Make sure to put OC in your comment and let me know if you guys have ever used 360 footage before and if this thing is interesting yet. Love you guys a little bit longer, and we'll see you on the next one.